Hi, Kaylee. Thanks so much for taking the time to speak with me. She's a student in the MSMBA program. I'd love to know kind of, just what your background is and how you ended up in the MSMBA program.
Sure, yeah. So I studied chemical engineering in undergrad at the University of Wisconsin and then did a certificate, which is like a minor in biology and engineering. After school, I started working at AbbVie, which is a biopharmaceutical company right outside of Chicago. I was at AbbVie for about 2 years, and then I left to join an early stage health tech startup called Groove Health just prior to coming back to school to start the MSMBA program. And the second part of the question was,
Just how did you end up in the MSMBA program? Like,
yeah,
how did you decide upon it?
yeah, sure. So I knew I wanted to go back to school and I knew I wanted to keep somewhat of a technical edge. So I was actually, I think, maybe somewhat unique in that I only applied to dual degree programs, in addition to one master's in computer science program. So that kind of whittled down the universities and programs I was applying to begin with. But the reason I was so interested in the Harvard MS Engineering Sciences MBA program is because of the diversity of electives they allow on the engineering side. So I knew I wouldn't be completely pigeonholed into either chemical engineering electives or computer science electives, and I have been able to take a diversity of classes. And then I also really liked that the program was only 2 years, whereas a lot of the dual degrees with MBAs are 3 years.
Speaking of which, could you give an overview maybe of the MSMBA program? Like, what does the curriculum generally look like? What does the cohort generally look like?
Sure, yeah. So, in terms of the curriculum, we actually start a month before the greater MBA program starts. So, all of the MS MBAs get to Boston and Cambridge early August. And we take a class called Systems Engineering then, which is, a good way to bond and get to know your classmates and also kind of dive back into calculus and differential equations and MATLAB. Then, beginning in the fall, we pretty much jump headfirst into the normal MBA curriculum. So, we all get a standard HBS section. There's usually around 3 MS MBAs total per HBS section. And the whole first year is the normal core HBS RC programming. So, you take classes like finance, marketing, etc. And then we do have an MS MBA specific seminar the whole first year where we meet about once a month to hear a speaker relevant to the program. So, VC, someone who's launched a startup, etc. Then the MSMBA curriculum starts up again January of first year, where we have another immersive experience, and that's a class called Technology Ventures Immersion, which is an awesome class. It's about 2.5 weeks. In the spring semester, you again jump back into the full MBA curriculum. Then second year is much more integrated and mixed in terms of business and engineering. So we're required to take 3 engineering electives and 4 business electives second year, in addition to 3 core classes. So the first core class is called Integrated Design, which I'm currently in. It's part of the fall semester programming. Then we have another January intensive called Launch Lab 1. And in the spring, we have our capstone thesis course called Launch Lab 2. And those are basically around launching a venture, pitching to VCs, coming up with a business plan, etc.
That sounds super cool. It sounds very specialized for, or at least very tailored to people who are interested in joining like tech ventures
For
or
sure.
being, starting a tech
For sure.
venture. Um, so another one of the logistic things is how much does the program cost and is there good financial aid?
Yeah. So the program costs just north of 84,000, and yes, there is good financial aid. About half of all students get some sort of financial aid, and actually all MSMBAs are guaranteed to get at least one scholarship. Basically, anyone who matriculates into the program automatically qualifies to get this particular scholarship both first and second year, which is a great perk to kind of offset the little bit of an increase in tuition that adding on the MS requires.
That makes sense. And how many people are in your cohort or a typical cohort and what are they generally like?
Yeah, so my cohort has 32 people in it. The class before us, the class of 2020, had I think around 28. It's a great group of people. Some of my best friends from graduate school are MS MBAs. It's fun to kind of have this shared technical experience and technical background that not a ton of the rest of the MBA class has. And people come from all sorts of different career backgrounds. People have worked at NASA, at Amazon, at Apple, Google, etc. So it's really fun to learn from each other and just meet so many new people so early on because of the August class.
And of all of the great classes that you've had a chance to take, what do you think has been your favorite part of the curriculum and why?
I loved Technology Ventures Immersion, which is what we take January of first year. And it's a two-part class. The first part is really hands-on engineering development and engineering prototyping. And I think I love that because it's not really something I got from the chemical engineering undergrad, which tends to be a lot more theoretical for the most part. So that was a lot of fun. And then the second part of the class, you essentially work on building out a business model, and that ends in basically a pitch to real life VCs. So you get a ton of practical experience. It's kind of like a mini adventure in building a company, in that you actually build like the real working product in the first half, and then develop the business model and figure out how you're going to sell it, how you're going to raise money to make it come to fruition in the second half.
That sounds like an amazing program, and one of the many amazing pieces that are specific to the MSA MBA program. Like it's actually, I believe,
Yeah,
not a part of the degree separately.
correct.
So in regards to maybe like some of the people who've come to speak to the MSMBAs, who has been your favorite speaker and why?
Yeah, my favorite speaker, I've actually heard him speak twice, is Sunil Nagaraj of Ubiquity Ventures. He is the founder and the founding partner. He actually spoke to us in the first year seminar we're required to take through the MSMBA program. And then he spoke again just recently, end of October of this year, to us over Zoom. And I think it's kind of hard to translate being a good speaker to Zoom, but he was just as good on Zoom as he was in person. He has a kind of computer science, electrical engineering type background, and was a technical founder before he became a VC. So he has the perspective of both parties, and I think we all just really resonated with him and resonate with him when he speaks, because it feels like we do have a lot of shared experiences. He's also just very candid, obviously really, really smart. And so I've enjoyed hearing him speak both times.
Awesome. And then I'd love to know, with your background, you could have ended up doing a very technical, like you could have done a computer science degree, you could have done just a pure MBA. How did you decide on this program among all your options?
Yeah, so I was actually maybe somewhat unique in that I only applied to dual degree programs with the MBA, in addition to just one sole master's in computer science program. And I think the reason why I ended up at Harvard, obviously getting the Harvard MBA never hurts your resume. And then I really liked the fact that on the engineering side, the electives could be broad. And I am able to take a diversity of electives. So I would only be able to take chemical engineering classes or only computer science classes. I could take a diversity. I also really like that the program is only 2 years, whereas a lot of dual degree programs are 3 full years. So essentially, once I got the acceptance letter from Harvard, it was pretty clear that this was the right answer.
Totally. That sounds like there are a lot of perks to this program. So, you are almost, I think, at the end of your time. What do you think about what you're going to do afterwards?
Yeah, I definitely want to start a company. I think most MSMBAs join the program because they either want to start a company, likely a technical venture, or they want to be a product manager at a technical organization. So I'm not exactly sure what that will look like as of now, but that's the current plan.
And what about your classmates? Is your plan pretty typical, or are you like, an outlier?
No, I'd say my plan is pretty typical. Yeah, I probably something like 80% of MSMBA's plan to start a startup right after school. Those that don't
Wow.
want to, yeah, it's a really high number. And not everyone will start one immediately after school, but I would say probably in the first 5 years after we graduate, most of us will have tried something. Those who aren't wanting to found a startup right away are primarily either looking at joining a startup, mostly like a deep tech, technical type venture, or they're looking at big tech or otherwise just kind of, again, technical organizations. So organizations like Tesla, etc.
That's amazing. I watched the video of the two deans talking about how they were hoping to kind of create the next like technical leaders of the world, and because those people tend to have come from a technical background and have some sort of business experience. And it sounds like they really succeeded with choosing your cohort because so many of you actually are going to follow that path.
Yeah, I don't know what happens in admissions, but I think the admissions directors are really excellent at reading a person's essay and figuring out what they really want, because it's pretty amazing how like candidly and wholeheartedly everyone in the MS MBA program is really passionate about this kind of merging of technology and business.
That's great. And so, speaking of admissions, my final question is what advice do you have for prospective applicants?
Yeah, I think the best thing I did when I was even considering applying was just I started to reflect and journal almost every day about things that made me tick, things that didn't make me tick, things I liked about my job, things I didn't like about my job. And I think that culminated in a really reflective essay that was very descriptive of who I am, which again, I think admissions is really good at looking at that and figuring out where you'll fit and if you'll fit in the program and even in the broader MBA program. So I think, be as reflective as possible, really have a clear understanding of why the MS MBA program in general, or an MS MBA program, why Harvard specifically, and why at this specific juncture. And then lastly, just be as authentic as you possibly can. I think that really comes through in a sea of so many applications when, again, the admissions person can really feel like they're getting to know you through what you've written.
That is super tangible advice. That's actually probably some of the best like application writing advice I've ever heard.
Thanks.
So thank you so much for taking the time, Kaylee. If you
Of
have any
course.
last minute thoughts, feel free to add them. Otherwise, this was great.
I don't think so. It's a great program. Thanks for having me.
Okay, awesome. See ya.
Take care. Bye.